ADOS is everywhere. Cut the check.
So this is the deal, people. I'm going to try to run through a few things really quickly, just to make a point. And this is all in case you are wondering, in regards to the whole dust up with Ice Cube, with his contract with Black America, which he put out over the summer, and which subsequently he announced recently that he was approached by both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. Said he spoke with both sides. When he spoke with the Democratic Joe Biden campaign specifically, they looked over the plan, said they liked the plan, about 85% of it, but they wanted to wait until after the election to, I guess, discuss it in any detail or to make any commitments regarding the plan. Apparently the Trump administration also reached out. Subsequently, as Ice Cube reports, some of his plan was adopted and incorporated into Trump's Platinum Plan, which he also released in the summer, early fall. So yeah, Ice Cube put the plan out, met with both sides. Democrat Biden campaign told him to wait. Trump campaign told him to come on, we're going to adjust our Platinum Plan, incorporate some of your contract with Black America. Ice Cube is being labeled everything from a coon, Uncle Tom, traitor to his people. And I feel like the criticism is unfair. Publicly, Ice Cube has not taken a side. He has not endorsed either side. Taking the words from his mouth, he doesn't like either side. He doesn't trust either side. His only goal is to try to move the needle for Black people, politically, economically, and everything that goes along with that. We've been seeking redress for a very long time, and we have a two-party system. And although in the modern era, last 50 years or so, our affiliation, Black people's affiliation with the Democratic Party has been steadfast, to say the least. And, I think there comes a time, in your political thought process, just as in anything that you're participating in on a regular basis. Hopefully, as you mature, your thought process changes and, you figure out different ways to solve the same problem rather than doing the same thing over and over again, which is pretty much what we've done, for the last almost 60 years. I feel like even though we may favor, one party over the next, I feel like there's nothing wrong with playing both parties against each other, as, this political game really calls for. Politics is about the distribution of limited resources for your group. And the political process is the mechanism, or one of the mechanisms in which we have available to us to try to procure said resources. So if we're going to use that mechanism, I think we should figure out ways to use that mechanism to the best of our ability, pragmatically, practically. I think that should be our approach. Emotions have very little place in politics. The mantra that I live by is no permanent friends, no permanent enemies, only permanent interests. But I digress. Purpose of this quick video is just to show that there are other groups that meet with Trump, other minority groups that meet with Trump, from Native Americans, Alaskan natives, Asian Americans. They've all met with Trump during his administration in one way or another. Just going to run through a few clips for you. If you haven't already, hit that like, subscribe, share this video, drop down in the comments and let me know what you think. Is Ice Cube right to attempt to negotiate for resources for the black community with whoever's in power, or should he have waited until after the election? I'm of the mind that if the Democratic Party truly valued and needed the black vote, that was their golden opportunity to double down, one up Trump. If Trump came with 500 million, they should have came with 600 million. But anyway, this first clip, Trump hosts tribal local leaders.
We're here to talk about how we can create new prosperity for our citizens by
Trump hosts tribal local leaders for energy meeting.
We're here to talk about how we can create new prosperity for our citizens by unlocking vast treasures of energy reserves, of which we have a great deal, far more than
Resources. He's talking about unlocking vast treasures of natural reserves. And these are for Native Americans.
anyone understood. I'm proud to have such a large gathering of tribal leaders here at the White House. I look forward to more government-to-government consultations with tribal leaders about the issues important to Indian.
Government-to-government communications, consultations, negotiations about the things that are important to your group.
Country. We love Indian country, right? Many of your lands have rich natural resources that stand to benefit your people immensely. These untapped resources of wealth can help you build new schools, fix roads, improve your communities, and create jobs like you've never seen before. All you want is the freedom to use them, and that's been the problem. It's been very difficult, hasn't it? It'll be a lot easier now under the
Jobs, people. Money in your pockets and money to boost your local economy and in turn build your community, to build homes, to build roads, to build schools, to build hospitals, libraries, and other institutions, so that you may remain and act, somewhat in an independent fashion. Government to government communications.
Trump administration. For too long, the federal government has put up restrictions and regulations that put this energy wealth out of reach. It's just totally out of reach. It's been really restricted. The development itself has been restricted, and vast amounts of deposits of coal and other resources have in a way been taken out of your hands, and we're going to have that changed. We're going to put it back in your hands. These infringements on tribal sovereignty are deeply unfair to Native Americans and Native American communities who are being denied access to the energy and wealth that they have on their own lands.
So basically, Donald Trump is meeting with these local tribal leaders to basically assure them that they will be able to take control of their natural resources, that they will be able to turn those natural resources into economic vehicles in which they'll be able to revitalize their communities from top to bottom.
Many of our states have also been denied access to the abundant energy resources on their lands that could bring greater wealth to the people and benefit to our whole nation. We're becoming
Greater wealth to the people. We're gonna leave that clip on that note. I think you guys get the gist. This one here, President Trump participates in a roundtable discussion on supporting Native Americans. And listen how he starts off. Trump wants these votes. He's not playing any games. He's politicking. You know, whether he's being genuine or not, they're getting his remarks on record. They're getting his verbal commitments on record. So that in the event that he fails to deliver, they will be able to hold him accountable at that point in time. It's always important to, you know, get those commitments in writing, or to get those commitments on record in some fashion or another, so that down the road, if the outcomes aren't favorable or what you expected them to be, you are able to hold them accountable with their own words. Let's go ahead and get into this clip.
We've been for a long time, and we're working together very closely. I'm honored to be with you today to discuss the unprecedented actions my administration has taken to support our treasured Native American communities.
You heard that? Unprecedented action will be taken to assist their treasured Native American communities.
Together, we're fighting for everybody, but we're fighting this horrible coronavirus. It's a tough opponent, but we're winning, and we're starting to see our country come back. It's been a very exciting few days. We're starting to see it all come back. We're improving the lives of Native American families and tribes more than any administration has ever done by far.
We're improving the lives of Native Americans, and that's what it's all about.
We're grateful to be joined by Governor Doug Ducey, and thank you very much, Doug, for being with us.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Secretary Eugene Scalia, thank you, Eugene.
Pleasure.
Senator Martha McSally, who's doing very well. I hear things are very good. You're doing great.
Senator Martha McSally, I do believe she's a Native American, so they have representation in the Senate.
Thank you, Martha. Vice President of Navajo Nation, Myron Lizer, and by the way,
You got the Vice President of the Navajo Nation, present and accounted for.
we appreciate it very much. And you know, there's two ways of saying that name. They told me outside, but I always think of it as Lizer. So how do you like it? How do you like it? That's what I thought. Okay. Thanks, Myron, very much. And Second Lady, thank you very much for being here. We really appreciate it. The Navajo Nation has been very special to a lot of people, and it's certainly been very special to this state. And the relationship, Doug, I think is extraordinary, isn't it? When you get right down to it. So thank you very much, and we very much appreciate it. Native Americans have been hit hard by the terrible pandemic. Over 2,000 members of the Navajo Nation have tested positive for the coronavirus, and tragically, more than 70 have lost their lives.
So I think we get the point here. You know, it's okay for other groups, Native Americans, whoever the case may be. This one here.
President
Trump orders new task force to solve missing, murdered Native Americans, Alaskan natives. Very specific, targeted policies and resources directed to a specific group. And I don't have a problem with that. But why is it that everyone has a problem when American descendants of slavery bring forth their requests through the same channels, and we always, some kind of way, get accused of begging and wanting to grift and live off the system, welfare and the like, and that we don't want to work? Well, that's not the case. You know, we're all criminals want to loot your homes and burn your communities to the ground. But yeah, Trump orders a new task force to solve missing murdered Native Americans and Alaskan natives. Now, we always talk about the missing girls and black communities nationwide and how that gets overlooked. Why don't we have a contingency at the White House so that Trump can order a new task force to solve missing murdered black Americans, Native black Americans, who have gone missing or who have been murdered?
Trump is putting together a task force to solve missing and murdered Native Americans and Alaskan natives. American Indians and Alaskan Indians experience disproportionately higher rates of violence, and the federal government is taking steps to change that.
So, Native Americans and Alaskan natives in proportion experience higher rates of violence, and I would also say that that is relevant and also a fact for black communities, impoverished black communities. We suffer a high rate of poverty in relation to the population. We suffer in greater proportions in every category, from poverty levels, education levels, incarceration, home ownership. I mean, we're at the bottom of the barrel in every category. We need resources.
Federal officials will be consulting with tribal governments to figure out solutions while also providing important information to Native communities. Well,
So what do we have here? This one is President Trump signs an executive order for Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. Everybody's at the feeding trough. Everybody's getting their needs met. They're taking pictures. They're smiling, showing all their teeth. And nobody is demonizing them. Nobody is impugning their character as people, questioning their worth as human beings. Nobody's saying they're being used. Of course they're being used. If he's gonna sign some legislation, they gotta pose for a picture, excuse me. That's the nature of the game. That's politics. That's shaking hands and kissing babies. It's part of the game. But if you're gonna take that picture, make sure you get something in exchange, a commitment, which eventually leads to a proclamation or a signing of a paper designating some resources. This is an executive order. This didn't go through the Senate. This didn't go through the House. This came straight out the pen of the president. Just as happy. You're just as happy as can be. In there with the orange man bad. So now we move over from Native Americans to Latinos. Latinos meet with Trump. Let's see. Trump meets with Latino supporters in Las Vegas. President Trump meets with Hispanic leaders at the White House. Watch as Trump participates in a roundtable with Latinos for Trump coalition. More footage from the Las Vegas meeting with the Trump supporters. Meet some of Donald Trump's Latino supporters. And you know, the mainstream media makes it seem as if Trump doesn't enjoy a wide base of support from diverse groups. Many won't come out and say it for the obvious reasons, but you shouldn't have to say it anyway. What you do when you go in the voting booth is your own business. But look at this. I'm trying to find a quick hit. Trump meets with Hispanic leaders at the White House. And he just recently signed a Hispanic Prosperity Initiative, designating some dollars for Hispanic communities. And they never get, criticized. Only black people.
Well, thank you very much, please. Great honor to be with you in the beautiful Rose Garden on a sweltering day. But I do want to thank you all for being here as we proudly launch the White House Hispanic Prosperity Initiative. Very exciting.
There you have it. And look at the pomp and circumstance in which he's announcing this initiative. Why aren't black people at the White House getting initiatives? Why aren't our political leaders out here galvanizing, advocating, meeting with the mechanisms of power to get resources sent to their communities? Baltimore, Detroit, Chicago, St. Louis. What's going on? Where are our representatives? Are they hiding, waiting for a Democratic administration before they open up their mouths? And even then, when we have Democratic leadership, which most of these black urban centers are firmly in control under Democratic leadership. And it's been that way for almost 60 years.
Very exciting. Thank you. With this very exciting new effort, we will deliver a future of greater promise, opportunity, and freedom for our nations. Really, it's a treasure. You are a treasure. The Hispanic Americans and the Hispanic American community is a treasure. Thank you. We're thrilled to be joined today by Secretary of Education, Betsy DeVos.
And we know it's all, blowing sunshine up the ass with all the flowery language. Everyone's a treasure. But those votes are the actual treasure. So as long as there's a quid pro quo, there's nothing wrong with showing up and negotiating for resources from whoever's in power. Like Ice Cube said, we gotta press everybody. Charlemagne, Puffy, I need to go sit y'all butter biscuit eating asses down out here trying to stunt for Joe Biden, trying to mitigate and do damage control for what Ice Cube has brought to the table. Y'all some haters.
Ross, thank you, Betsy. Thank you. Secretary of Commerce, Wilbur Ross. Thank you, Wilbur. Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Ben Carson. Thank you, Ben. Small Business Administrator, Jovita Carranza. Thank you, Jovita.
And if you notice, this is what we say to those who always use the excuse that Obama couldn't do anything because he had such vehement opposition from the Senate, which was Republican controlled. But we always say there's there's quite a few branches of administration in government, from education, the housing, the drug administration. There are different agencies that you can dispatch to take care of certain issues if you yourself are unable to or unwilling to, for whatever reason. You can send your administrations or your different agencies or put them into play to bring about change and to remedy situations. So if you notice, everybody is present, from the Secretary of Education, Ben Carson with housing development. Everybody's everybody's there and everybody's in line.
Very popular, Jovita. And Representative Mike Garcia. Good, thank you. Thank you. Congratulations, Mike. That was a big win, huh? Biggest in 22 years, they say, huh? First time in 22 years. That's a good one. Well, you got something special going, right? Thank you, Mike. Great job. Yesterday, I was delighted to host my friend, President López Obrador, Mexico, here in the White House, and affirm the close and continued friendship between...
Well, I think we get the point here. Groups are meeting with Trump, and they're not catching any flack for it. So no, I don't fault Ice Cube. I think Ice Cube was right. So we even have some, some footage of Indian Americans showing support for Donald Trump. I don't see any footage. Just did a quick search. Don't see any legislation, executive orders, or initiatives for Indian Americans per se. Let's see. He thinks Native American, he thinks Indian Americans will vote for him. Why some Indian Americans are
Republican frontrunner Donald Trump has been criticized for his politics breeding hate, fear, and divisiveness. Yet, he continues to enjoy and employ a loyal fan base, and polls show him with a dominant lead across the field. One such loyal staunch of support has come from an unusual group. Indian Americans for Trump 2016, headed by some of the reputed voices in the Indian American community here in the heart of New York. I've got with me Anand Ahuja, who's an attorney here in Manhattan, as well as the Vice President for for Trump for 2016, Dr. Sudhir Parekh, who is a notable physician, as well as a special advisor in this organization, and Mr. Dave Mucker, a businessman in New Jersey, who is a treasurer and secretary in the organization. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me here in Times Square. My first question has to be, why did you decide to support Mr. Donald Trump?
See, I am an attorney by profession, and in my practice, I see a lot of illegal immigrants here. So I was attracted towards Donald Trump because of his physical policies, his economic policy, his foreign relation policies, his immigration. So when Donald Trump says, let's make America great again, that's the reason I was attracted, and I believe that keeping in view his leadership qualities, he will make America great again.
Dr. Parekh.
So let's examine this really briefly. We have an Indian American. This guy has got an accent that's thicker than a pot of curry goat. I mean, come on now. And this guy's first item of agreement with Donald Trump was his immigration policies, because as an attorney by trade, this guy apparently comes in contact with a lot of illegal immigrants. So from his angle, he sees the negative impact that they're having on our justice system. In particular, I'll assume, since he's an attorney by trade. Let's see what his partner has to say.
Many say that he's alienated a lot of minorities. You know, again, remarks against Mexicans we've seen, and Mr. Ahuja referred to some of those, against African Americans and even Indians now with H-1B visas. He's made remarks that he will abolish those because they are taking jobs from qualified Americans. Yet, you have decided to support Donald Trump. So explain me your reason.
Well, I personally believe that he is a very strong candidate out of the candidates who are contesting. Number two, he's a doer, because he has shown in New York City since '77 when he was nobody, and then he dealt with the Mayor Ed Koch, Giuliani, Bloomberg. These are the very powerful political figures, and he became a successful businessman. So I think he's a good for economy, he's a good for trade, and particularly is very good for India. I always support a person who will support the Indian American community here.
So you say Trump is good for the economy, Trump is good for trade, and Trump is good for his home country of India. And this is in light of what the interviewer asked him in regards to Trump cracking down on H-1B visas. As I was discussing with a friend of mine, that these H-1B visas, as we know, go in large part to Indians coming over to the United States to work tech jobs, Silicon Valley and the like. They proliferate also in the hotel industry, IHG. I worked in the building here in Atlanta, out in Dunwoody. I worked in the IHG building. IHG is International Hotels Group. They pretty much own most of the complex. And there was a large contingent of Indians who worked on site. And, you know, I don't know how many of them were here on H-1B visas, but I suspect a large portion of them. And yet, you know, this guy still supports Donald Trump because he's good for the economy, good for trade, and he's good for his home country of India. And I spoke directly to a Mexican American who lived in Texas. He's a truck driver, and he lived near the border. And, you know, this was around the time when the caravan was marching through, through Mexico and heading for the border. I think this was during the midterm elections in 2018. And, you know, he expressed his outrage at the caravan, at illegal immigration. He said his parents immigrated here legally in the 60s. And, you know, they were totally against illegal immigration. And it was a surprise to me. You know, we were discussing the issue. I didn't really want to tilt my hand because I didn't want to offend him in any way. So I was approaching the situation a little cautiously, and I allowed him to speak first. And, you know, he asked me what I thought about the caravan. So I politely spun it back to him. And, you know, being that, you know, those were people from his ethnic group. Well, not all of them, so, you know, Central Americans, whatever the case, they were from south of the border. And I allowed him to express his thoughts, and he basically said he was not a fan in any way of illegal immigration, especially that, you know, he lived near a border town, so he kind of felt the effects greatly, you know, from crime and such. Sometimes they create unsafe conditions. So, you know, I had to respect his opinion, you know. So, you know, I let him know how I felt. You know, I didn't have to lay it on thick or whatever the case may be. I just let him know, you know, that we were in agreement on that issue. So let's get back to these guys here. Let's see.
And I believe that out of all these candidates, I think Donald Trump, since he's a New Yorker, he's more open-minded than any other candidate to deal with the minorities. It's kind of contrary to the perception people have.
That's really.
He said that he feels that Donald Trump would be more sensitive in his dealing with minorities, and that's diametrically opposed to the current media portrayal and popular perception. You know, these guys are cutting through the media noise, the propaganda, the smear campaigns, and the like. And they're basically saying, hey, this is what's important to me. I feel like he's addressing these issues effectively. For the time being, he'll get my support. That's being pragmatic.
The unusual dilemma that this narrative that Mr. Donald Trump is espousing, on public forums and all the speeches seems to be very xenophobic. It seems to be the working class white Americans only, Mr. Makkar. Then why does your group feel that he is going to be so good for the Indian American community? We are a minority after all.
I'm a political and community activist. Number one, I'm against career politicians. And if you look at the mood of Americans,
his number one issue was career politicians. And again, I was just having this conversation with a brother, and that was one of my highlights. Well, one of the things that I could point to Donald Trump, which separates him from Joe Biden or any other candidate who has been before us, is that he is not a career politician. Never held elected office prior to 2016. And, after his run, be it over this year or whether he gets another 4 more years, that'll be it for his political career. 4 years, at the most 8. I feel like that's most politicians should be limited in some form or fashion to 8 years, with periods in which they may have to sit out. Career politicians out here getting rich, fucking the game up. Nancy Pelosi is worth $160 billion, either her or Maxine Waters. We'll get into that later.
and so far the voting has been done. Mr. Trump has got vote from across the board. It's not that Indians have not voted for him, Mexican has also voted for him, and Muslims have also voted for him.
It's a very small base though right now.
No.
Because in Republican primaries
But
there are not many registered minorities.
Everybody has voted for them. And Mr. Trump is a self-funded politician. He turned politician from businessman. He's a
Donald Trump is a self-financed politician, meaning he's not taking corporate dollars to fund his campaign. As a matter of fact, Donald Trump's not even taking a salary from being the president. He's only taking, I believe, $1.
funded. And if you look at the
But they want to portray him as greedy.
American system, right now it is in ICU. In 2012, both parties spent 1.6 billion with a B, and outside money was 2.5 billion. And Trump, it's not about Trump. This is a historic and election, and very exciting election in which you are looking at it. Okay, one man has taken a fight against the power brokers, donors club, and the super PACs, where you don't know who is putting the money in that. So it's a
We know who's putting the money behind the Democratic Party. George Soros, Act Blue, BLM.
people's fight. Even in Republican Party, 2/3 of the Republican wants an outsider. If you look at Democrat, they want an outsider. But the choice is very bad. You have a career politician since 76, Hillary Clinton, who charged for 3 speeches $675,000, which is, in my opinion, is a bribe. It's not a speaking fee.
Speaking about Hillary Clinton's and her exorbitant speaking fees, and he said he looked at those as bribes. Those weren't speaking fees, those were bribes. Bill Clinton was receiving $500,000 checks for speaking engagements in Russia while Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State. Those were all bribes so they could have access to the State Department.
So you are saying that, the majority of Indians who typically tend to be democratic, in fact 88% Indian Americans voted for Barack Obama in 2008, will change now. Hillary Clinton is a public figure in India as well, so she has tremendous support. So this is unusual that you're not only are you supporting a Republican, you are also supporting a Republican who's been disowned in many ways from his own party.
Well, I mean, disowned by his own party because it's a vested interest in the establishment. Because they want someone who is their puppet. And this guy is an outsider, and he's trying to do.
He's a loose cannon.
The reform of the whole political system and electoral system. And even though you are saying that 80% of the Indians are Democrat, that is not true. If you look at during Barack Obama time, yes, 80% voted for Democrat, President Obama. But if you look at the 2004 census, where 55% of the Indian American voted for Republican, then more voted for Republican than Democrat, because we are.
So he's basically letting you know here that the Indian American vote is not static. They're not wedded to one party, that they may swing from party to party, from election to election, depending on what's at stake or depending on what's on the table for them. So, when you're self-interested, as I stated earlier, we have no permanent friends, no permanent enemies, only permanent interests. So all that being wedded to one party, even if you're not getting any benefit from it, that's played out. That's been played out. That makes no sense. Anybody who's kicking that, you need to go somewhere with that. Make it make sense. Makes no sense. We on the bottom. We out here at the bottom. Like I say, in every economic, statistical category that matters, black people, American descendants of slavery, we're on the bottom.
We are more affluent community. We are a very successful community. Our family values are same as what Republic.
So look, I think I get the picture with that there. So look, this video is already 40 some odd minutes long. I'm going to end this video now again. Just going to wrap it up by saying, look, when it comes to engaging the mechanisms of power, and you're trying to procure resources for your community through the political framework, you have to court both sides. You have to let them know that your vote is up for grabs. And, you come with a 10-point plan. Whoever adopts the most points of my plan or the most important aspects of my plan, let's talk, let's negotiate. And then we can come to some sort of agreement, get some sort of commitment out the deal. It matters not who is in power. Period, point blank. So I'm riding with Cube. I feel like his heart is in the right place, his head is in the right place. He's moving sturdy, he's not moving crazy, he's not out here fanning out for Trump, bending the knee. He's standing firm. And no, he's not a political leader. But I think that, being that he is who he is, stature-wise and celebrity-wise, and that he is bringing a conscious effort to the table, focused, hey, I'm not gonna talk bad about him. If he move crazy, and it's warranted, we'll let him know. But until then, let him work. And that's it. It's Bill Money signing off for 30 Laundry Media. One.